The world of Dogman is full of amazing characters and, more importantly, secrets that have never been answered, at least until now.
He's not going to ruin my evil plans to destroy all do-gooders.
So do you think you know all the unanswered mysteries in the universe of the bravest police dog ever?
You're the only one that can stop him.
One of the most important moments in the Dogman story is when Petey uses a cloning machine to create a child version of himself, little Petey. At first, Petey wants his clone to simply work for him, but over time, the two develop a father-son relationship. Lil Petey even sees Crud, Petey's father, as his grandfather. But here's the thing, can the little kitten really be considered Petey's son just because Petey raised him? After all, Lil Petey is an exact replica of him, meaning they have identical DNA. Technically, wouldn't that make them twins rather than father and son? And wouldn't Crud, biologically speaking, be Lil Petey's actual father? Or could it be that Lil Petey's creation wasn't an exact cloning process? The cloning machine seems pretty simple. Petey just needed to place his DNA inside it. However, what if the machine itself has a DNA reserve that mixes other genetic codes with the person who wants to create the clone? If that's the case, then Petey could genuinely be considered the biological father of his clone. And honestly, that would make sense, because even though young Petey looks a lot like Lil Petey, their personalities are quite different. Sure, it could be because Lil Petey didn't go through the same life experiences as his creator, but since he was born already knowing how to talk and walk, maybe their differing perspectives come from the fact that he isn't truly an identical copy. There's no way to know for sure. After all, we're talking about one of Dogman's biggest mysteries, and believe it or not, this is just the first of many that we'll cover in this video. So buckle up, because you're watching another Cinewave. While Dogman books are created by Dav Pilkey within the story, the creators are two comic-loving kids named George and Harold, the protagonists of Captain Underpants, another book series by Pilkey. The first Dogman book even starts with the two of them creating the story and introducing it to us. But if these two kids made up the story of Dogman and drew every moment, doesn't that mean all the adventures we've seen are just things they imagined? Technically, all books, movies, cartoons, and shows are just creations of imaginative minds, but it's different when you're following a story that, within its own universe, is explicitly labeled as fiction created by two kids. Still, does it really matter? We love plenty of cartoons knowing they aren't real, so why should it bother us if a story we're reading isn't real even in its own narrative? Does that erase all the incredible characters, emotional messages, and creative jokes in Dogman? Of course not! And hey, it's possible that the adventures of the canine cop and his friends are real in some other universe. In the end, this is yet another question that we'll probably never find the answers to. The cloning machine Petey used to create his clone is pretty miraculous, but he actually bought it online. And like most things we order online, it came with a big catch. The instructions clearly say it should only be opened after 18 years so the clone can grow to adulthood. That's why Lil Petey is a kid. Petey, the world's most mischievous cat, used the machine without reading all the instructions. Here's the question though, do most people who use this machine actually let it run for 18 years, or do they skip that and create young clones instead? After all, this technology could be super handy for anyone wanting kids. For example, it would have been a game changer for Brandy from Bluey, who spent years trying to have a baby. Most people probably wouldn't want to wait that long just to create a single clone. Maybe the machine's main customers are companies that buy them in bulk to produce new workers. But how many mini clones are out there in the Dogman universe? We bet there are a ton. What about you? And if you'd love to make a clone of yourself or a friend, leave a comment below with #clone. Have you ever noticed that besides Petey's orange fur and black stripes, there's another physical detail about him that's easy to miss? The cat's tail is missing a piece right at the tip. Most people only realize this when other cats appear in Dogman stories, allowing us to compare their tails. But yes, Petey's tail is incomplete, and the end of it has an uneven shape, like part of it was cut off. And this isn't just our imagination. The fact that Petey has a damaged tail has been explicitly mentioned in the Dogman books, showing us that even the characters in this universe notice something unusual about the world's most villainous cat. One thing we can rule out is the theory that Petey's tail has always been like this. Crud, Petey's father, mentions knowing what happened to it, and there's even a flashback showing Petey with a normal tail as a kitten. Another flashback shows young Petey with his tail bandaged and missing a piece, suggesting that something happened during his childhood that caused the injury. The most popular theory is that Crud himself is to blame. As a terrible father, it's possible that he hurt his son to the point of causing permanent damage, which is pretty sad, right? But we don't have confirmation that Crud is truly responsible, nor do we know how he might have injured Petey, assuming he really is the culprit. Officer Knight is the human half that makes up Dogman. What's funny is that despite being such an essential part of the franchise, we know very little about him. Seriously, we don't even know his full name. Officer is just his title, and Knight is his last name. But what about his first name? That remains a total mystery. What makes this stranger is that the Dogman universe isn't like Peppa Pig, where most characters are referred to by their roles and we never learn their real names. Even Chief, who's mostly called by his nickname, has a full name, Clarence Bailey. Miss Nurse, another character with a job-based nickname, is actually named Jeannie. And even Officer Knight's dog has a name, Greg. So why is the name of such an important character like Officer Knight a complete mystery? It almost feels like Dav Pilkey, the creator of Dogman, is teasing him. Or maybe we haven't learned his real name yet because it's tied to some incredible plot twist. Or perhaps we'll never find out the truth behind this secret. As far as we know, Dogman is the perfect fusion of Officer Knight and his dog Greg. But is it possible that the human side of Dogman is no longer alive? According to most countries' laws, someone is only considered dead when they stop breathing. If we go by that definition, Officer Knight is technically still alive, but let's not forget that Miss Nurse removed his head and replaced it with Greg's. Consciousness resides in the brain, which is always in the head. Greg is undoubtedly alive and conscious, but if Officer Knight's body is alive only from the neck down, that means his mind didn't survive, right? It's hard to say for sure, especially since this is a children's story. There are hints that Dogman inherited part of Officer Knight's mind. After all, he fights just like him, and no one seems to mourn Officer Knight's supposed death. On the other hand, it's possible that Officer Knight's skills remain in his body as muscle memory, something you don't need a brain to retain. Perhaps no one talks about Officer Knight's tragic end to avoid making Dogman sad, because in this case, the story's protagonist would only be Greg living in his former owner's body. Could the truth really be that bizarre? We don't know for sure, but we do know you won't regret hitting the subscribe button to get more amazing videos about your favorite cartoons. Petey built the robot ADHD as a weapon for his son, but in the end, Lil Petey gave it the ability to make its own decisions, and the two became best friends. So does that mean ADHD is truly self-aware? This isn't just a question in Dogman, it's one that humanity has been debating ever since we started imagining robots. And now, with artificial intelligence becoming so popular, this discussion feels more relevant than ever. ADHD is a robot made of wires, gears, and programming code. Can all of that create something that genuinely thinks for itself, or is it simply pretending to be free since Lil Petey gave it the ability to have its own will? It really depends. The only thing that makes us different from robots is that we're made of flesh and bone. But why would that automatically give someone consciousness while programming wouldn't? Couldn't our own thoughts be considered a kind of programming? Or, in the Dogman universe, is there something else that defines a living being, like a soul? If that's the case, then it's pretty unlikely that ADHD has an actual mind, unless of course it somehow gained a spirit along the way. One of the first things we think of when it comes to Chief is his incredible ability to get stressed out, like really stressed out. But even though he's grumpy, we know he's a good person who truly cares about Dogman. So what's the root of his constant anger? There are plenty of possibilities, but no clear answers. Being the head of a police station is probably a big source of stress, as are the occasional lectures he gets from his superiors. It's also possible that Chief went through some kind of trauma in his past that left a lasting impact on him. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that Dogman does things like lick his face or pee in the wrong places. Those would definitely push anyone's patience to the limit. The video's coming to an end, but we've left 2 other amazing videos on your screen. If you want the fun to keep going, just pick one and dive into another adventure. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.